What's up, guys? It's a Cheapster here, and today I'm going to be talking about what it was like working for Grubhub. I'm kind of going to be weighing some of the pros and cons of working for the company. If you don't know, Grubhub is a food delivery service. They deliver food for a bunch of different restaurants, and it's all through their app. People go on and order through their app, and then they have drivers like me who would go to the restaurant, pick up the food, and then deliver it to them. So there's a whole bunch of these kind of companies. You know, there's Uber Eats, there's Postmates, there's Bite Squad. I think Amazon even does delivery now. And I've tried a bunch of them. I actually tried Postmates. I looked into Bite Squad. I didn't actually try that. I didn't like Bite Squad because you had to be a W-2 employee. I tried DoorDash. What I found was I think Grubhub was just the best company. And again, I'm just talking about the driver experience here. I think Grubhub was the best company that I worked for, and the best company, and I only worked for those companies, but I looked into every company. I mean, any company that was around. I lived in Columbus, Ohio, and they pretty much had, you know, all the delivery companies. I looked into all of them, and I thought Grubhub just was the best by far. And the biggest reason that I would say I liked Grubhub the best is because they are very transparent with their pay. And that is something with an on-demand service. It's pretty hard to find that. It's hard to find people that are going to be transparent with their pay and aren't going to change it. Or if they do, they're going to change it towards the good side and pay you more, which is very rare with these third-party companies. Usually what you get is you start up and you start working for them. You kind of develop a need for working for them. Maybe you quit other jobs because you're like, hey, this is working well. And then guess what? What do? They start backing down your pay. They start making you get paid less. I worked for Instacart also, and they did that exact thing to me. Paid me probably a third or a fourth of what I was getting paid after a while. I'll do another video on that because Instacart really kind of got me mad at them for doing that. And they were great at the beginning. But yeah, Grubhub themselves, they are just a really great company in most facets. So yeah, let me just start off with some of the pros about Grubhub. They are very transparent, like I said, and that means that they'll show you what they're going to pay you per mile. They'll show you what they're going to pay you for each delivery, and they're going to give you 100% of the tips. And a lot of people kind of complain and say, oh, these companies are stealing our tips. I would say I really don't think Grubhub has ever stolen tips because I got paid well, and I don't see how I get paid well if they were stealing tips, because otherwise people are tipping just insane amounts. So I don't think I've ever had any issues with them. And I worked with them for over a year. And I just had very good things to say about them. The other pros are that the app I felt like was very smooth. It usually ran very well. If you had an issue, I could usually get through to customer support pretty quickly. And that usually wasn't too difficult to deal with. Sometimes you did have to wait. Sometimes you got those robotic customer service people who just were kind of difficult to deal with when you're in a rush. So maybe that could be a little bit on the con list sometimes, but the customer service was decent, and third-party apps are not known for their customer service, so I saw that as actually a plus for the app because usually they can be really terrible. The other plus is you can get things like double, even triple orders from the same restaurant. So especially like Taco Bell, there were times that I would get triple orders at a Taco Bell. So you pull up. Usually you go through the drive-thru if it's nighttime. And you can just say, hey, you know, I've got 3 orders, pick them up, and then deliver them all around. And sometimes I could get 3 orders done in 30 to 45 minutes, and that could be a pretty big pay. That could be something like $30 for 30 to 45 minutes of work. I felt like Grubhub's pay was really good. That's one of the pros. I would definitely say the pay seemed to be very high, at least in the Columbus, Ohio area. I think things are different around the country for what you're going to get paid, but in Columbus, Ohio, the north end is usually where I worked, and that was very good. I usually would say I got paid during the peak hours. I would get paid $25 an hour, pretty easily $25 an hour. Sometimes if you had really nice people who tipped you well, I get paid even more than that. And you just kind of get the system down too, so you can get paid more by learning it. It takes some time to kind of get it. But once you get it, it's great. I think the scheduling is great. That is one of the biggest pros too that I would say. You can schedule out your hours, and sometimes it was a little hard to get the hours, but you can get the hours. You can schedule them out, and you're good to get those, but you can also just turn on whenever you want right away, which is not a thing that I have found with most third-party apps. where they have the scheduling and you can turn on. And with Grubhub, I thought, okay, well, if I turn on other people's schedules, I'm not going to get much. At least in the Columbus, Ohio North area, I would get tons of stuff. And sometimes these were, everybody's busy and they're kicking them to me, being turned on. And these would be great orders. These would be orders that people who had schedules should be getting, but because they're too busy, I was getting them. I love just the fact that I could just turn on. I could just be sitting at home and decide, hey, it's I want to work a little bit. And I did this a lot because Grubhub would be open until 2 in the morning. So I'd stay up pretty late. So there's a lot of times where my wife might go to bed at like 11. And I'm like, hey, I might not go to bed until like 1. Just turn on the app for a couple hours and maybe make like $30 or so, $30-$40, just working a couple hours at night. And that was pretty cool. It was cool to be able to have that flexibility to just do whatever you want. And another part of that was I usually try to work pretty consistently around 30 hours a week or so. But there was one time I went home. I'm actually living in Greenville, South Carolina, and I went home to Ohio, and I was still in the Ohio area on the Grubhub app. So I just went home to work for a week just to kind of make some money. And I mean, I worked for like 9 days straight. I worked for 120 hours in 9 days. And that was pretty awesome to just say, hey, I need some money right now, so I'm going to just turn on and work nonstop for like 9 days straight. Needless to say, I made like $1,500 working that, which, I mean, if you look at the per hour cost, it's not amazing, but the fact that I could just turn on for basically a week and say I'm going to make $1,500 just quickly on the side thing was pretty awesome. So that was pretty great. Just the flexibility of it. So the pay is great, the flexibility of it's great, the scheduling is great. They also give you a shirt, they give you a hat. I can't find my hat right now. They give you a Grubhub hat, they give you Grubhub bags and stuff. You don't have to deal with buying people's stuff, and I think they did just change that, which isn't bad because I think they are paying you more if you have to buy stuff, because usually what it is people order through the app and you just pick it up. You just say, hey, I'm here for Jeff or whatever, and they say, okay, here it is. In some apps you're going to have to go in with their credit card, actually order it, actually pay it. And I think Grubhub is starting to do that, but I think they pay you more for doing it, so you do get the benefit of that. But I would say that is a benefit with Grubhub, that they usually don't do that. That's usually already ordered through the app, because that means that it's already being prepared while you're driving to the store. And you can get there and it's like, okay, well, it's ready right as soon as you walk in, you grab it and leave. And I think that's what a lot of people think of with these third-party delivery apps, is you just drive there, pick it up, and leave. And that's not usually the case. Usually on most of these apps, what you're going to do is you're going to get there, you're going to wait for 20, maybe even 30 minutes sometimes. And then you get to take the food, and then you get to go. So you can spend so much time just waiting at the restaurant doing nothing, and that can be a pain. And that's not to say that Grubhub never had that. There were times where that definitely happened, where I was waiting at the restaurants. But usually it was restaurants that I knew that would do that. So I would keep it in mind. There was a Bob Evans right by me that was always, it just took forever for them to have my food ready. So a lot of times I would just reject those. If Bob Evans was going to be slow, I just would say, no, I'm not going to do those. And usually then the next order would come in and I would make more money than having to wait to Bob Evans. So you can kind of figure those things out in your area as you go. And then another plus to the Grubhub app is the rejections. That is something that's very hard with third-party apps. Usually you get punished if you reject a lot of orders and stuff. Sometimes you can even get kicked off the apps, not even be a worker for them if you do that. But with Grubhub, it's a little different. You can meet these bonuses if you don't reject so much and you do your completion times, or not times, but your completion rates. You can get bumped up to different tiers to maybe do catering orders and things like that. I didn't care too much about that because I know in the past when I've worked with other third-party companies, they'll give you such terrible orders and you just would have to go do them for nothing. So I was like, I don't really care about that. So the great thing about Grubhub was they didn't punish me severely to just say, hey, I'm going to reject these. These are bad. And I thought that worked probably well for the market, because then it's like, okay, well, I reject it, and then somebody who's actually closer that it actually is better for can pick it up. And if Grubhub was having issues with the order, if nobody was really picking it up, they would add a little bonus to it. And that was pretty cool, because then it's like, okay, well, maybe they added $3 to this order now. Now I'm like, okay, I could go do that. That makes sense for me now. But it seemed to just be very streamlined with that. Definitely the most streamlined delivery app that I have worked with, that I've seen. Mostly it's pros. There's not much that I would say is a con, but let's get to the cons. The cons of the Grubhub app is The other side of customer service, if you are working with an order, the customer service is usually pretty quick. You can usually get them. But if you have an issue with your account, if you have an issue with wanting to move to Greenville, South Carolina, when you live in Columbus and you want to shift over to Greenville to keep working, that's where you're going to have issues, because you have a driver specialist who's kind of like your manager. And when I decided I was moving to Greenville, I let my manager know a month before, hey, I want to move to the Greenville area. No response for the longest time. Sent emails, calls, and calling these people is very, very impossible. The numbers are insanely hard to find. You usually can't even find them. Sometimes they don't even exist. So that was a major con. There's people I talked to that promised me, oh yeah, they'll look into it, they'll get me on a list, and then I would call back and they'd be like, oh, we'll add you to the list. I was like, I'm supposed to be on the list. And it is now 8 months since I tried to get transferred to the Greenville, South Carolina area, and I never got transferred. So I would say that's a major con with the Grubhub company. And it's pretty sad for me, because I worked for them for a year. I loved their app. I was a great promoter of it. I always told people it was great. And it's just annoying that I'm like, okay, I guess I can't work for you anymore because you won't switch my area. There's nobody I can talk to. So that customer service side, terrible. If you get paid incorrectly, you can have some really difficulties trying to figure things out with them, because they'll just bump you back and forth. You won't get a response for like a week most of the time. And I get it, there's a lot of people, but they really just don't do a very good job with their customer service. And that's not to say that they're the worst, because they are actually probably middle level for some of these third-party apps, because some of them don't even have a single thing that you can contact really to call. You have to do some of them are like you have to do Twitter to contact people, and that's just ridiculous. So they're not terrible, but they're really not good in that side. And the other con is just sometimes working at night was a little bit unsafe, and maybe that was just me. That was just the area that I guess I let myself work in sometimes. But usually it's like I felt like the more dangerous areas were the only areas that were open at night. And maybe it's just because stores were closed, I guess. But to me, it was a little bit of a con. Sometimes I felt like it wasn't very safe, and I didn't have like the knowledge of it not being safe sometimes. So sometimes I'm just accepting an order, and next thing I know, it's like very scary part of town, and it's like can't find houses, and sometimes it just gets really, really crazy and a little scary with that. But most of the time, I would say if you're trying to work during the day in the areas that are nice, it's usually good. So that's really all I got for Grubhub cons. It was pretty much just the customer service. Other than that, it was pretty great. There weren't many things that made me upset about it. The pay model was great. The scheduling was great. So it's something I would definitely recommend if you guys have never looked into Grubhub. Check your area, see if your area has it first off, and then if it does, maybe look around on some forums to see what people are saying about that area, see if it's good, or just try it. Just try it yourself, because there's no strings to it. If you sign up for it, you get your stuff, you can just try it out, see what it's like. I guess I did think of one con also, which this is just kind of a con to the whole system. If you don't really know how to do taxes very well, you want to get some help there, because you are going to be a 1099 employee. So that means tracking your mileage, tracking any expenses you may have, and you're going to put wear and tear on your car. So those are the cons, but that just comes with the territory, so I don't really see it as a con of Grubhub. It's just something you need to be aware of if you're going to do Grubhub. But yeah, other than that, I would say Grubhub is a great company. It's a great way to make some extra money, super flexible. So if you got one, try it out, and it's great. If you guys like this video, go ahead and tap the like button. It's the cheapest thing you can do. It won't help you make extra money, but hopefully this video does if you sign up for Grubhub. Also, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of videos on different ways that you can make extra money like Grubhub, and maybe even trying out some other services myself and bringing you guys along with me. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this was helpful.
1 penny, 2 penny, 3 penny. That's cheap.